good morning, good evening, or maybe for you it's 3 a.m., and if you're hearing this now, then I believe it's not by accident. You didn't just wake up. You were called. The hour of 3 a.m. is not ordinary. In ancient times it was known as the fourth watch, a sacred time when heaven often whispered its secrets to those willing to listen. It's a spiritual alarm clock, and if you're awake at that hour, it may be because God is trying to get your attention. So before you scroll, before you try to go back to sleep, before you let fear, worry, or distraction sneak into your spirit, say this prayer. You see, when you're jolted awake at 3 a.m., the first instinct is often to check the clock, sigh, and try to force your way back into slumber. But what if I told you that this interruption isn't a mistake? What if I told you it's not insomnia? It's an invitation. There is a divine rhythm to life, and sometimes the Spirit of God moves against the rhythm of human convenience. You weren't just awake because your body is restless, you're awake because your purpose is restless. Your destiny doesn't operate on your sleep schedule. Purpose doesn't punch in at 9 and clock out at 5. It doesn't nap when you nap. It burns inside of you even when you're unaware. And when the room is still and distractions are gone, sometimes that's when purpose speaks the loudest. That tug in your spirit, that uneasiness in your chest at 3 a.m., that is your purpose stirring. Many of us are praying for clarity. We want God to show us the next step, the big vision, the reason we were born. But here's the truth. God will often answer those prayers when you're least distracted. And sometimes that's not during a church service or a motivational seminar. Sometimes it's in the lonely hours of the night, when you are least in control and most available. That's when heaven begins to whisper. Your purpose doesn't sleep because the assignment on your life is too important. You were born with a calling not just to exist, but to contribute something eternal to this earth. And when you align yourself with that calling, even your sleep will be governed by divine timing. You may not like it, you may not understand it, but the spirit realm does not wait for your alarm clock. When purpose is pressing, it will wake you. When destiny is near, it will not let you rest easy. Now listen to this. Everything created by God was made with a purpose in mind. The tree was made to bear fruit. The sun was made to shine. The eagle was made to soar. And you, yes, you, were made to fulfill a unique assignment in this generation. You are not an accident. You are not a placeholder in time. You are a solution sent into the world in human form. That's why mediocrity will never satisfy you. That's why routine can feel like prison, because your soul knows there's more. And so, when your purpose starts stirring at 3 a.m., that's not the time to numb yourself with entertainment or scroll endlessly on your phone. That's not the moment to dismiss it as random. That's the moment to tune in. That's when you sit up in your bed and say, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening," because God will never shout over your noise, but he will speak in your silence. Sometimes we think our problem is that we're tired, but truthfully we're not tired, we're misaligned. When your purpose and your life don't match, your soul gets weary. When you've been ignoring your divine assignment, even 8 hours of sleep can't bring you peace. But when you begin to walk in what you were born to do, even 4 hours of rest can leave you feeling refreshed, because alignment brings strength. You may be asking, but what am I supposed to do when I wake up like that? The answer is simple. Ask, listen, write, pray. Keep a journal near your bed, whisper a prayer, reflect. Let God download into you what the daylight would never allow. Some of the greatest revelations you'll ever receive may come in moments that feel inconvenient, but those moments are divine interruptions. There are ideas, strategies, warnings, and confirmations that are trying to break into your life, and they often come in the quiet hours. Your purpose doesn't wait for permission. It pushes through when you're quiet enough to hear it. And if you ignore it long enough, you'll notice your life start to feel off track, out of sync, unfulfilled. Because you can only ignore your calling for so long before it becomes a burden. So the next time you're awake at 3 a.m., remember, it's not just about being tired or stressed. It's a sign, a signal, a reminder that your purpose is alive and active. that you're not meant to coast through life on autopilot, but to engage deeply with what you've been assigned to do. You were created for significance. Not just to survive the day, but to impact the world. You carry something eternal inside you, and sometimes that eternal thing will shake your natural world to get your attention. So don't curse the hour. Bless it. Don't fight the way. Cup, embrace it. Your purpose didn't come to sleep. It came to lead. There is something about the night that feels different. It's not just the absence of light. It's the shifting of atmospheres. While most people are asleep, unaware and unconscious, the unseen world is fully awake and alive. And if your spirit is alert, you can feel it. You may not know how to describe it, but you can sense it. The atmosphere is charged. You can't explain why you're restless. You can't explain why your thoughts feel louder, why your chest feels tight, or why a strange sense of urgency presses in on you. That's because the night is not neutral. Most of what happens in the spirit realm isn't occurring during the noise of the day. It happens in the stillness of night. While humanity sleeps, heaven speaks. While your body lies still, your spirit can travel. Angels move, strategies unfold, and yes, warfare intensifies. Don't be fooled. Just because the city is quiet doesn't mean the heavens are. God often does his greatest work in silence, and silence is most available in the night. All throughout Scripture we see the pattern. God spoke to Samuel in the night. Jacob wrestled with an angel in the night. Dreams came to Joseph in the night. Paul and Silas prayed and praised their way into breakthrough in the night. Jesus himself went to the mountain to pray at night. The night is sacred, not because darkness is holy, but because hidden things are often revealed in it. The night strips away the distractions, the demands, and the noise that clouds our spiritual senses. And when you are awake in those hours, something in your spirit must pay attention. If you wake up at 3 a.m. and there's a sudden unease, don't automatically assume it's natural. You must learn to discern the difference between random restlessness and divine disturbance. Sometimes what's waking you up isn't caffeine or worry. Sometimes it's spiritual warfare. Sometimes it's intercession. Sometimes it's a prompting. And sometimes it's protection. You don't know what traps the enemy set for your life that are being cancelled by your obedience to pray in that moment. The spirit world is real, and it doesn't operate on the time zone of your comfort. Things happen in the dark, agreements are made, assignments are released, attacks are planned, heaven is dispatching angels, and hell is looking for openings. So when you wake up and your spirit is stirred, understand, this is not just a moment. This is a battleground, and you have been awakened to take your place. The greatest battles of your life won't be fought in a courtroom or boardroom. They will be fought in the secret place, in the quiet of your room, while everyone else sleeps. You may be alone in the natural, but you are never alone in the spirit. There are hosts watching. There are enemies lurking. There is a purpose trying to be born, and there is an adversary trying to abort it before the sun rises. That's why prayer isn't optional. That's why warfare at night isn't just emotionalism. It's necessary strategy. You can't be a person of purpose and ignore the timing of spiritual activity. If God wakes you, get up. If you feel pressed to pray, do it. Don't wait. Don't rationalize. Don't delay, because windows in the spirit don't stay open forever. There are divine moments that come in the night, and when they come, your obedience becomes the deciding factor. What you engage with in those quiet hours can determine what shows up in the visible realm later. When you intercede at night, you're not just saying words. You're covering ground. You're defending territory. You're answering assignments you didn't even know were given to you. You're standing in a gap you never saw with your natural eyes. Sometimes you'll never know what was stopped in your life because of one whispered prayer at 3 a.m. And sometimes you'll never know what entered your life because you chose not to get up. There's too much going on in the spirit realm for you to sleep through every call. Some people sleep through seasons, but others rise when the Spirit taps them. And those who rise, those who answer, those who say yes when it's inconvenient, they become the ones who carry authority. Authority doesn't come from shouting in public. It comes from obedience in private. You want power, you want revelation, you want divine clarity, then show up when the Spirit summons you. Don't wait for Sunday, don't wait for a prophetic conference. If you're awakened in the night, take it seriously. Even if you don't understand why, posture yourself to receive. Sometimes just opening your mouth and saying, Lord, I'm here, is enough to shift what's happening in the spirit realm. Because you were born not just to be aware of the physical, you were born to operate in the spirit. Your spirit doesn't sleep like your body does. That's why sometimes, even when your body is tired, your spirit is still fighting, still sensing, still active. It's not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is real, and once you understand this, you will never treat 3 a.m. the same again. Silence. It's the one thing this generation runs from the most. We drown our minds in constant sound. Music, news, conversations, scrolling, notifications. We fill every corner of the day with noise because somehow silence feels threatening. But let me tell you something powerful. God speaks in silence, not because he lacks volume, but because he values stillness. The more you crave noise, the less likely you are to hear him. The more you resist silence, the more distant his voice seems. Not because he's far, but because you're not listening. You see, when you wake up at 3 a.m. and everything is quiet, it's not empty, it's full. It's full of potential, full of revelation, full of presence. That stillness is not a void, it's a sanctuary. And in that sacred moment, God is not shouting, he is whispering. He is not trying to overwhelm you. He is trying to align you, but you cannot hear the whisper of heaven while your heart is still crowded with the echoes of the world. God is a communicator, yes, but he is not a performer. He does not compete with chaos. He waits for order. He does not force his voice through your busyness. He waits for your surrender, and sometimes that surrender doesn't come in a sermon or a loud praise session. Sometimes it comes in the dark, quiet hours of the night when everything around you is still and you finally become available. Why does God speak so clearly in silence? Because silence is the language of focus. It's the place where your heart is undivided. Your phone is not ringing. Your meetings aren't pulling you in different directions. Your family is resting. Your job is paused. In that moment, the clutter clears. And for the first time all day, you're actually present. And it's not that God just started speaking. It's that you finally stopped talking. Some of the greatest encounters in Scripture happened when the individual was alone. Moses saw the burning bush in the quiet of the wilderness. Elijah heard the still small voice on a mountain. Not in the wind, not in the fire, not in the earthquake, but in the whisper. Why a whisper? Because God wants you close. He doesn't yell across distance. He leans in and he speaks in a voice meant to draw you near. That's why being awake in the night is not just inconvenient, it's holy. When you are awake and everything is still, you are being invited into an audience with the King. You don't need to say much, you don't need to perform, you don't even need to know what to ask. Just be still, just listen. He may not speak with words, he may reveal something in your spirit. He may deposit peace where there was anxiety. He may bring clarity to something you didn't even realize you were confused about. Because when God speaks, it doesn't always sound like a sentence. It feels like a shift. You may ask, but how do I know it's God? You'll know by the fruit. His voice may come through a thought that didn't come from your logic, a sense of direction that didn't originate from your plans, an urge to forgive someone you've been bitter toward, a reminder to make a decision you've been avoiding, a reassurance that you're not alone even though your room is dark and empty. His voice brings alignment. It brings peace, not confusion, conviction, not condemnation. It confirms what he's already been saying in your life. And it often comes when you're not distracted, when you're listening more than you're speaking. You have to train your soul to be quiet. The body can be still and the mind still be racing. You can be lying in bed and your thoughts are shouting. That's why the psalmist said, I quieted my soul within me. Silence on the outside must be matched with stillness on the inside. That's where God speaks the deepest truths. That's where he reveals who you are and what you're here to do. And that's why the enemy tries so hard to fill your life with noise. Because he knows if you ever get quiet, you'll start hearing truth that breaks every lie. Silence may feel uncomfortable at first. You may sit there and feel like nothing is happening. But stay there, don't rush out of the quiet, don't dismiss the moment. Often it's after the stillness that revelation comes. The first few minutes may feel empty, but the Spirit begins to move once you're no longer running. It's in that surrender, in that sacred hush, that eternity begins to speak into time. This is why those 3 a.m. moments matter. It's not just about spiritual warfare. It's not always about resisting darkness. Sometimes it's about receiving light. Sometimes God wakes you up not to fight, but to reveal, not to speak loudly, but to make you sensitive. And if you will honor the silence, if you will treat the quiet as sacred, you will begin to hear what others miss. You will walk with a knowing that can't be learned in books or acquired in sermons. It's something transferred in the stillness. So the next time you're awake and the world is silent, don't rush back to distraction. Listen, not with your ears, but with your spirit. The silence isn't empty. It's the voice of God waiting to be heard. When you wake up in the dead of night at 3 a.m., it might seem like coincidence, but in the spirit realm, nothing is random. Timing is divine. There are hours in the night that carry more weight than others, and 3 a.m. is not just a number on the clock. It is a watch in the spirit. It is a threshold. It is the hour when heaven calls warriors to the front lines of unseen battles. You see, most people are asleep at 3 a.m., not just physically, but spiritually. Their minds are at rest, their bodies are still, the world is quiet, and it is precisely in this stillness that demonic activity increases. Why? Because the enemy thrives in secrecy. He operates in shadows not because he is powerful, but because he is a deceiver. Darkness is his camouflage, but prayer at 3 a.m., that is light, that is fire. That is interruption. It is confrontation. When you rise to pray at that hour, you are stepping into a spiritual arena that most ignore. You are not simply waking up. You are reporting for duty. Prayer at that hour doesn't just comfort you. It causes disruption in the spirit realm. It breaks patterns. It exposes plots. It reverses curses. It dismantles what was quietly being built against you. While others are dreaming, someone is scheming. While households sleep, altars are speaking. There are demonic covenants being enforced in the night. But when you pray, when you open your mouth with authority and alignment, you break protocol. You disrupt demonic boardrooms. You silence voices that were raised against your name. You shut down conversations in the dark about your family, your destiny, your progress. The problem is not that demonic activity exists. The real issue is when believers refuse to interrupt it. Many people are under spiritual attack, but they don't discern it because it manifests in natural ways. Confusion, fatigue, stagnation, repeated loss, depression without explanation. But the root is often spiritual. And the only way to address it is through strategic prayer, not emotional outbursts. That's why God wakes you, not to complain, not to scroll, not to overthink, but to speak, to declare, to engage. You must understand that your authority is not in how loud you pray, it's in how aligned you are when you pray. When heaven backs your voice, demons flee not because of volume, but because of authority. And authority doesn't come from emotion. It comes from relationship. When you know who you are, when you stand in righteousness, when you carry clean hands and a yielded heart, your whisper in the Spirit shakes foundations. Your prayer becomes a verdict, and hell respects verdicts. This is why Satan does everything he can to make you sleep through your divine assignments. He doesn't mind you praying casually during the day. But when you rise in the night, when you interrupt his operation with intentional prayer, that's when you become dangerous. That's when you stop being a believer in name only and become a warrior in truth. There are things that only shift in the night. There are cycles that break when you pray while others are unaware. That spirit of delay that keeps returning, that oppression that keeps hovering over your house. That strange fear in your dreams, that sudden loss of direction, those are not just natural occurrences. They are spiritual assignments. But when you rise and pray at 3 a.m., you partner with heaven to issue divine restraint. You release angelic help. You break the silence the enemy has been banking on, because silence empowers darkness, but prayer in the night dismantles it. God is calling people who don't just pray reactively, but pray proactively. People who don't wait until things fall apart to get serious. He is raising up those who will respond when he taps them awake, not with complaints, but with clarity, who will say, "Yes, Lord," even when their body says no, who will kneel in the dark, speak into the invisible, and trust that what happens in the secret place will manifest in the public space. You don't need to have all the right words, you just need the right posture. You don't need to understand all the dimensions of the warfare, you just need to be obedient to show up. The Holy Spirit will guide your words, heaven will interpret your groans, the power is not in your performance, it's in your presence. When you show up, heaven backs you, because the one who prays at 3 a.m. is not just praying. They are standing watch. They are a gatekeeper in the Spirit. They are stopping what should never enter their house. They are unlocking what has been long delayed. They are claiming what was already theirs but needed enforcement. So when God wakes you, don't roll over and miss the moment. Don't let the enemy finish his work uninterrupted. Get up, speak up, stand up in the Spirit. You are not weak, you are not helpless, you are a warrior, and your prayer has the power to turn the tide, not because you are special, but because you are surrendered. And that's what 3 a.m. is really about. It's about surrendering to the call to war, to watch, and to win. There is a moment in the stillness of the night, when the earth is asleep and heaven is active, that divine instruction is released to those who are positioned to receive it. The night watch is not a passive time. It is a season of alignment where God doesn't just comfort you, He instructs you. He speaks with clarity because your distractions are asleep, your schedule is paused, and your ears are finally open. At 3 a.m. the soul is quiet and the spirit is most alert. If you're willing, you must understand that purpose is not found in busyness. Purpose is found in instruction. You do not fulfill destiny by movement alone. You fulfill destiny by direction, and direction comes from God. It doesn't come from your mind. It doesn't come from your emotions. It comes from divine wisdom. But God doesn't shout over the chaos of your day. He waits for the stillness of your surrender. That's why He chooses to speak to many people at night, because in the night everything else is silent. And finally you can hear, when God gives instruction, it is not casual. It is not vague. His voice comes with weight. It cuts through fear, confusion, and self-doubt, but He doesn't always speak while you're surrounded by people. Often He waits until you're isolated, not to punish you, but to focus you. The night watch is an invitation into strategy. It's a summons to the secret place, not just for comfort, but for clarity. That's why people who obey that call at 3 a.m. are not ordinary. They walk in insight others do not have. They may not be the most visible, they may not even be the most celebrated, but they carry divine blueprints. They move with wisdom because they have received the instruction others slept through. Instruction is the difference between wandering and building, between striving and advancing. God never designed your life to be a guessing game. He never intended you to depend on luck or chance. He designed your steps to be ordered. But ordered steps only follow revealed instructions. And revealed instructions come in moments of intimacy. Ask Moses. He didn't get the design for the tabernacle during the day's noise. He received it in prolonged presence. Ask Noah. He didn't build the ark by guesswork. He was given divine measurements. Ask Joseph. His dreams carried insight for governance, for famine, for the future of nations. But those dreams came while he slept, while the world was still. So when God wakes you in the night, understand, this is not just about devotion. It's about direction. He may show you what to build. He may reveal who to disconnect from. He may download a business idea, a ministry concept, a message, a system, a solution. And what you receive in that moment can change the next 10 years of your life. But you must be present. The danger for many believers is not that they lack passion. It's that they lack precision. They move but without instruction. They serve but without understanding. And they burn out because they were running in a direction God never ordained. But the night watch corrects that. It is a divine recalibration. It is where you receive updates from heaven, like a download to your spirit, that recalculates your path, aligns your timing, and sharpens your focus. And when you follow divine instruction, your pace becomes grace-filled. What took others 10 years can take you one, not because you're better, but because you're aligned. God never blesses chaos. He blesses order. And order comes from obeying instruction. You must become sensitive. Sometimes that one moment of prayer at 3 a.m. is not just about breakthrough. It's about blueprint. You rise thinking it's warfare, but heaven is speaking strategy. And if you dismiss the moment, you forfeit the map. That's why the enemy will do everything to keep you tired, distracted, or dismissive. Because if you ever receive instruction at the right moment, the acceleration in your life will expose every delay he planted. Don't underestimate the prompting. Don't say, "I'll pray in the morning." That moment may not come again. That instruction may be tied to a window, and that window won't stay open forever. That one download could change your assignment. It could spare your family. It could prevent a crisis. It could unlock a season you've been waiting on for years, but only if you obey, because God does not reveal his secrets to the casual. He reveals them to the committed. He entrusts his strategies to those who prioritize his voice above their sleep. He gives insight to those who choose the secret place over the comfort zone, and you must decide, will you be one who moves only when life forces you, or one who moves when heaven instructs you? The difference is access, and access is granted in the night watch. So the next time you're awakened in the night, don't just pray, listen. Don't just receive. There may be a divine instruction waiting on your yes in the dark. And what you obey in secret will show in power by day. There's something sacred about the hours when the world sleeps but your spirit is stirred. When you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., it's not just an odd moment or a restless night. It's an appointment. It's not about what's happening around you. It's about what's happening within you. Because at that hour, heaven is not only speaking, it is watching not to condemn but to record, watching not to punish but to take account of your response. You see, every prompting from the Holy Spirit is an invitation. Every divine interruption is a test, not a test of perfection, but of posture. Will you rise when he calls? Will you respond when you feel that gentle pull in your spirit? Will you treat that hour as holy, even when your flesh wants to dismiss it as inconvenient? The 3 a.m. hour is a spiritual proving ground. It's the kind of moment that reveals what truly governs you, your appetite or your assignment, your convenience or your calling. The voice that whispers, "Just sleep a little longer," is not just about rest. It's often resistance wrapped in comfort, and heaven is watching how you respond to that resistance. Not because God needs to know what's in your heart, he already knows, but because your response reveals to you what's in your heart. Your response trains your own soul in obedience. That's why it matters. Heaven records what you value, not in the way we often imagine, with guilt or shame, but with great intention. When you rise in obedience, even with sleepy eyes and a weak voice, heaven marks it as faithfulness. When you say yes to God when no one sees, no one applauds, and no one affirms you, heaven writes that down. Because that kind of obedience qualifies you for things that talent, gifting, and public acclaim never will. Your 3 a.m. response says more about your hunger for God than any Sunday sermon or Instagram quote. It tells heaven, I'm available even when it's not easy. It tells the spirit realm, I am not governed by the natural clock. I move by spiritual timing. And that posture does not go unnoticed. It attracts instruction. It opens access. It releases divine trust. Heaven doesn't just bless random people. It promotes the trustworthy, those who can carry revelation without pride, those who can receive instruction without delay, those who can steward a divine burden even when it's inconvenient. That's why God watches what you do when no one is watching, because who you are in private is the truest version of who you are, and your private posture determines your public elevation. There are assignments that are delayed not because you're not called, but because you haven't responded. Heaven can't advance what you won't steward. You can't move to the next instruction when you've ignored the last one. And often that last instruction came in the still of the night when your spirit was stirred and you were being measured. Not in performance but in sensitivity. You don't have to have long, perfect prayers. You just have to be present. Heaven is not recording your eloquence. It's recording your availability. That whisper of "Here I am, Lord," is more powerful than 1,000 declarations shouted without obedience. That silent agreement with God in your heart carries more weight than religious performance, because God is not impressed by your words. He's moved by your alignment. There are angels who move at your obedience. There are spiritual assignments released when you say yes in the dark. And there are moments when heaven watches not what you say, but whether you rise. The simple act of showing up when God calls has authority in the spirit. It may feel small to you, but in the realm of the invisible, it's recorded as partnership. Heaven calls it faithfulness. Heaven calls it maturity. Heaven calls it trust. You must understand, you are not the only one being activated at that hour. The enemy is also active, but while darkness is scheming, heaven is scanning. While demonic forces try to manipulate, heaven is identifying those who will rise as intercessors, as builders, as watchmen. And when heaven finds someone willing to respond at 3 a.m., someone who says, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening," that person becomes a vessel for God's purpose on earth. God doesn't need your strength. He needs your surrender. He doesn't require perfection. He requires presence. If you will keep showing up, if you will keep answering when he calls, even if it's messy, even if it's quiet, even if it's weak, you will become a name in the record of heaven, not for being great, but for being available. Because at the end of the day, what God is building in your life doesn't start in the spotlight. It starts in the secret place. It begins in the dark when everyone else is asleep, and you choose to answer a call no one else heard. And when you respond, heaven records it, not for man to see, but for God to reward in due time. So the next time you feel that pull, that divine stirring in the early hours, don't ignore it. Don't say, "I'll pray later." That moment is not just a prayer moment, it's a heavenly test. And when you pass it, something unlocks, something shifts, something begins, because heaven records those who respond in the night. So now you understand, being awake at 3 a.m. is not a coincidence. It is not just restlessness. It is not just insomnia. It is a summons from heaven, a divine appointment, a sacred interruption with eternal implications. At that hour, God is not simply trying to comfort you. He is positioning you to war, to listen, to receive, to align, to break, to build, and above all, to respond, because your response matters. The spirit realm is not moved by good intentions. It is moved by obedience. Heaven is not recording your comfort. It is recording your posture in the pressure. And if God can trust you to rise in the night, to stand while others sleep, to pray while others postpone, then he can trust you with strategies, with keys, with answers that shake nations, free families, and rewrite generational stories. This is not just about prayer. It's about partnership. It's about choosing God when it's not convenient. It's about choosing destiny over delay, intimacy over ease, eternity over comfort. So the next time you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., don't ask, "Why am I awake?" Ask, "Lord, what are you saying?" Because at that hour, heaven is waiting, watching, and recording. Who will rise, who will listen, who will speak, and who will shift the atmosphere? Let that one be you. Let heaven find you awake, alert, and aligned. Your future is listening, and so is God.